And today, I'm announcing another big piece of our plan to build more housing. Now, more and more Canadians are renting, and the cost of rent keeps going up. Canadians need more buildings intended for renters, not just condos that turn into Airbnbs or are sold to foreign buyers as financial assets. So, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be removing the federal GST for the construction of new apartment buildings, and I'm encouraging all provinces to do the same. This plan is going to get more apartments built in big cities, in small towns, especially along transit lines, and they'll make sure that there are units with 2 or 3 or even more bedrooms, the kinds of places families can live and grow.
Or you, as the third-place party in 2015, said that you, as government, would remove the GST from new rental construction and renovations. You broke that promise in your first mandate. Now, 8 years later, after saying that it wasn't evidence-based and wasn't needed, you're saying it is. Why should voters still stick with you over this?
In 2015, we made the commitment to remove GST on purpose-built housing, and we looked at how and what that would have an impact back in 2016, and we decided that building the RCFI, the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, would be a better way of getting things done in the context where they are right now. And that program has led to about 40,000 units being created across the country and led to affordable financing for people building purpose-built construction units. It was the right program at the time, and that's exactly what we did, and it continues. But now, given interest rates where they are, given the challenges that people have in building new apartment buildings, we realize it's the right time to step up with removing the federal GST on purpose-built apartment buildings. And we're calling on provinces, and we've heard already from a number of provinces that are going to do just that, and we will see GST and PST, or HST, eliminated from a large number of apartment building constructions across the country, which will help significantly reach millions of people into thousands of people into getting new apartments.
And
Judy Trin, CTV News. Prime Minister, in this idea that you're bringing forth today, this measure is from 2015. Yesterday's measure was a policy from 2018 that was in the budget. 2022 that was in the budget. So these delays would appear of your own making. The fact that you have fallen behind in double digits in the polls to the Conservatives, is that something that you need to take ownership of, because you have delayed these measures that would have made life affordable for Canadians much earlier?
I think what Canadians understand is that the housing crisis requires everyone to work together. It requires provinces to step up. It requires municipalities to step up. We need to draw in the private sector as important parts of building housing, which is what removing the GST from purpose-built rental housing or apartment buildings is all about. We need to draw in the public sector, the not-for-profit sector, and see it continuing to succeed. So having these conversations and making sure we're building the right solutions for Canadians right now is what Canadians expect of an evidence-based government that is looking at the data and is responding with real solutions to real challenges. But for further discussion on housing, I'm happy to turn it over to Minister Fraser, who will talk about all the programs we're doing and why it takes time to build the right programs for Canadians. Sean.
Look, thanks very much for the question. I think one of the things that you've got to understand is that as circumstances change, so too must our response change. If you look at the circumstances we were dealing with after the 2015 election, as the Prime Minister alluded to, we thought we could get a better return on our investment through the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. There's been factors that have shifted over the course of the pandemic and since that have made it more expensive to build the kinds of homes that people can actually afford. by actually moving forward with removing the federal GST at this point in time, we're going to change the equation, and it's going to grow supply immensely across this country, but it's also going to change the kinds of homes that people build. We're going to see more apartments go up instead of condominiums that'll be rented out or held onto without somebody living in them. And we tend to see that apartments rent for a couple $100 less every month than their comparative condominium that goes up. This is a good deal, and I should say that already since news has broken that this is something we're going to be doing, I've received messages from Minister Calandra in Ontario indicating they're going to follow suit. I've received messages from Minister Callan and Premier Eby in British Columbia indicating they'll do the same. And just recently, I've received a message from Premier Fury in Newfoundland and Labrador saying they're also going to do the same thing in order to reduce the cost of building. Federal leadership can drive change at provincial levels and municipal levels, and we're going to play that leadership role to help solve Canada's national housing crisis. Thank you.
Amy Simon, Global News. Prime Minister, should Canadians expect that you will be announcing additional housing measures on top of the GST rebate today?
We are definitely going to be announcing more on housing. We know that there is no single silver bullet on fixing housing. That's why we've done everything from bring forward a tax-free savings account in the last budget that made a huge difference. We're cracking down on predatory practices in the industry. We're moving forward on increasing supply with the Housing Accelerator. We've seen 3 rounds already of the rapid housing strategy that has put up thousands of units right across the country. But there is no one simple solution, and that's why we continue to roll up our sleeves, work with partners like municipalities, nonprofit sector, provinces, and we're going to continue doing that. Housing is a massive challenge and even a crisis, but it's a crisis that Canada has solved before, and it's one that we are going to solve again by working together.
Émilie Bergeron, Canadian Press. Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Poilievre today accused you of changing your mind on the issue of the GST because he is announcing the same thing or something quite similar. What do you have to say to him about that? Just to make sure that I get your point here. There's 2 questions that were blaming me because we've had the idea since 2015, and all of a sudden, Mr. Poilievre said that it's a new idea that we're coming up with a little bit of anything, right? Okay, and so as I said, there's always room for a good political debate. But what counts for Canadians isn't political debate, it's solutions. Concrete measures that we'll be taking to help people. And that is what we are doing. It's been some 8 years that we've been there helping Canadians with various investments that made the economy grow, that helped families, that helped the seniors. And now we're at a point in time where Canadians are having a tough time, in particular related to housing and groceries. And we are taking concrete action in these areas to help Canadians. And if Mr. Poilievre wants to applaud him, well, go ahead, applaud. Are you ready to repeat the $500 the specific benefit for rent? Well, this was a specific assistance that was already available under the Canadian housing benefit. And we're always trying to find a way to help people who need help. But we do know that what's important now is to increase the offer in housing. Well, that's not the only announcement, the one we're making today. There'll be more. And we'll continue to have a look at the best ways to help people who are having difficulty. Radio-Canada and on GST, how are you going to ensure that this 5% cut ends up in renters' pockets? Are you going to force the builders to reduce their costs or owners to reduce rental? So we're removing the GST on the construction of rental units to ensure that more rental units are built, apartment buildings. And when these buildings are built, they will have cost less, so the developers will get the money then. It's part of the calculation. when people have to decide whether or not they'll build apartment buildings. So that's how it's going to work. Now, we also have other measures to help renters, other measures outside of the rental benefit that will help with rentals costs. This one is to increase the offer of apartment units throughout the country, so I understand that there won't be any obligation on their part. So between now and the next election, let's say it's in 2025, how many new units do you want to see built in Canada? Can you give me a number? I'll hand over once again to the Minister of Housing. It's a question that we discussed quite a bit.
Can I just get a specific number by 2025? Combien de nouveaux logements? How many new
units?
buildings built in Canada? Target.
We can't put an exact number on exactly how many homes will be constructed because there's many market forces that go well beyond the government policy. But my expectation is that we're going to see many thousands of homes. There's estimates just in the GTA that this one measure could potentially lead to 120,000 new units over 10 years in one part of the country. This is also going to depend on what supplementary measures other levels of government put in place. So there's many factors that we know are going to impact the exact number of homes, but this is a transformational shift in the way that we're going to build homes in this country and attack the direct problem that developers are experiencing by not being able to build units at prices people can afford given the cost pressures they've been facing in recent months.